Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back. Pros and cons with traditional bows, traditional archery. It's a lot of fun, I'll give it that. It's very challenging, and you can acquire a skill over time that is just phenomenal. Okay, now it doesn't mean you're going to be Robin Hood, because there was only ever one Robin Hood and nobody's beat him out since. Okay, however, you have a lot of choices in the traditional world. You've got recurves like this. This is a takedown style, so it comes apart in little pieces, packs up into a nice little package, and boom, compact. Okay. Then you've got the non-takedown style. Okay, this is a one-piece bow. It could be a long bow or it could be a recurve, whatever. It's a one-piecer chunk of wood basically, so it doesn't come apart in little pieces, right? So these can be a little bit more, well, in your face to try and be portable with them, okay? So they're not as portable as these are, that are a takedown style. The other thing you have is with trad bows, no matter what type it is, long or recurve, what have you, some of these, a vast majority actually, do have the capability for mounting a quiver on the riser, like this one does. It also has a burger hole, so if I want to change out to a higher end kind of plunger and rest system, I can do that. Or I can do some other sort of a rest, and that's fine too. Or I can shoot off the shelf, or I can just use this plastic cheapy thing that over time they wear out and you got to replace them. I got a whole package of replacements. So, but when you shoot off of a rest, you're going to have a different knocking point than you will shooting off of a bare shelf, or even a shelf that's bare with one of those stick-on, like camel hair or bear hair or simulated animal hair pads. Okay, and they also have a backing pad too to save wear and tear against the side of your riser. Okay, you have some options out there, right? But if you don't have the burger hole, you are literally stuck at shooting off the shelf. Okay, you're not going to be able to shoot with one of these things unless that particular design of bow has a flat, because otherwise it's going to be rounded, and yeah, that's not going to work for you. And there are a few cheaper bows that I've seen that have no support for anything but shooting off the shelf, period. And the only way to get a quiver on there is with a limb quiver. Okay, I don't even like the look of a limb quiver. I know it's traditional in its style and blah, blah, blah. I don't freaking care. I don't like the looks of it. I think they're ugly, okay? But that's just me. I have my own preferences, so do you. Now, like I said, there's a lot of things we're not getting into in this video because it has nothing to do with it. There's technically 3 ways you can shoot a trad bow, okay, that has mounts, okay? You can mount a pin sight on my Nighthawk. You can mount it on my center point Aspen. You can mount it on a lot of different bows that have that quiver mount, because that quiver mount is also used for mounting on a pin sight, which is a big T-bar thing that comes out about yay far, and it's got a big T-shaped thing, and you move the pin up and down the rail. Now, in your beginning stages of getting into archery, at least, I'd probably recommend getting a bow that you could mount a pin sight on. Okay, only because you're going to be more accurate sooner, you're going to enjoy it more, won't be so frustrating. But don't rely on that thing forever. Don't use it as a crutch forever. Okay, if you want to learn true traditional archery, there's really only 2 ways. One is gap shooting, which is using the tip of your arrow as your sight, okay, which has no limitations for range at that point. Okay, so it doesn't matter where you are, what distance you are. You don't even have to know how far away that deer is. All you do is you point and shoot, okay? With instinctive archery, traditional, you are focusing solely on that target. That is an extremely long learning curve. And the unfortunate side effect for my freaking eyeballs in life is that I cannot wear glasses shooting even a compound, okay? Because I can't see right. Okay, with glasses on. These are my up close, and I can see within 3 feet crystal clear. Any closer, I'm screwed. Any further, I'm screwed. My distance glasses have to go beyond 3 feet, okay, which would generally be okay for instinctive shooting, except by the time I pull back my bow and it comes up to my face, the string is in the way, okay? I find it very, because of where my anchor point is and everything else, I find it's in the way. I can't, it just bugs me. So I shoot without my glasses. Besides, at a distance, at least during daylight hours, I can see perfectly fine at a distance without my glasses, because I don't even wear glasses when I'm driving. I keep them in the car because I got stopped once and the cop said, look, at least if you're not going to wear your glasses, keep them in the car, because I forgot them. So he gave me a warning. Okay, but he says, I'm putting the word out on you. Okay, so you can go to Timmy's and then you go home, then you get your glasses, then get back out on the road, okay? And otherwise, you know, you get stopped again and you don't have your glasses at least in the car, you're busted. And it's like, okay, fine. So a little bit about what happened to me about 30 years ago. So ever since then, my glasses are in the car regardless. And at night I do wear them if it's raining, because otherwise I can't see. So this causes me a lot of problems, getting away from my personal life a bit. This causes a lot of problems for me with archery. I can't wear glasses, period. And that's okay with me, all right? I don't mind. So, but you do have only those 2 main methods that are going to be your optimal. If you start with a pin sight mountable on your bow, if your bow supports it, and you rely on it all the time, and you go out hunting, wherever that sight pin is set at, that is the only range you can use, okay? Until you readjust the sight. And you're going to have to know where to readjust that sight to make sure that your shot is a kill shot, okay? In the vitals where you need to hit the animal, okay? So this is for the hunters out there, okay? So I don't want to rely on a pin sight. I also don't like the idea of pin sights anyways, because they come out too far, and if you whack that thing in the bush somehow, or you know, you're walking in an area where something grabs it, it can go and then it could bend it on you, and then now you're screwed. Now your whole hunting expedition just went to hell because you don't know how to gap shoot or instinctive shoot. You relied on a pin sight. So there's definitely pro side to learning gap shooting and instinctive in these type of bows. They are going to be your ultimate, okay? I can walk through the bush with this thing strung up or unstrung, okay, fully assembled, and my arrows are here, and I'll have broadheads on here when I'm hunting, not field tips. And this is a pretty compact package, even just sitting like this. But if I string this thing up, well, then I've got a little bit different gap, but I can still get through the bush fine, no big deal, right? So, and the way I hold this bow, because it is a left-handed bow, okay, which means I hold it in my right and I draw with my left, my arrows are protected because they're behind me. The fletches are behind me, okay? Now, the other con to traditional archery, okay, is you have no choice but to shoot feathers, okay? Especially if you don't have a burger hole to put a different kind of rest on. Now, I have a video all about rests, and we did find a couple possibilities that would allow us to shoot either feathers or plastic vanes, okay, without any issues whatsoever. And I'm going to have to experiment with those down the road when I get some more money. Right now, my money's tied up. As I get money to going into hunting season, I still have a lot more gear to get yet, so it's not happening probably this summer, okay? Maybe we'll see if I do winter shooting. Maybe I'll set something up, and maybe over the winter we can do something like that, or maybe next spring. But unless, you know, somehow I get a pile of money somewhere, then of course I can start getting these other parts ahead of time, because I want to buy another bow that I'm going to specifically experiment with these different rests and stuff, to find out what are the ultimate best rests and so on for bows that will support these things, etc. Okay, so whatever bow you buy, pick wisely upon what you want to be able to mount on that bow, okay? Because not every bow has mounting capabilities, period, okay? Other than every traditional bow, you should have no problem putting a limb quiver on, because when you get into things like long bows, they don't have any of that crap. You're shooting off the shelf, or if you go full-on traditional longbow, they have no shelf. You're shooting, guess what your shelf is? Your index finger. You're going to be shooting feathers, trust me, unless you want to lose your fingers from the veins. But so why don't we shoot vanes off of these things just normally? Why can't we do that? Well, because vanes aren't forgiving, right? Not like feathers are. They don't like to flex as well. So a feather just goes right by, no problems, okay? A plastic vane is not so forgiving, so it kicks the arrow in multiple directions. Depending if you're a left or right-handed shooter, things go weird, right? So this is why, in order to shoot plastic vanes correctly and properly off of a trad bow, you need a bow that can support an appropriate rest that would work with vanes, and if it works with vanes, it will work with feathers as long as you don't get a whisker biscuit design, okay? And that means the tri-brush or the full whisker biscuit. If you get either one of those, you're not gap shooting anymore, okay? You're going to be going full-on instinctive, or you're going to be relying on pin sight. So think of it that way. There are pros and cons to all kinds of different equipment, right, that you're going to deal with your bow. So we know what the majority of the pros are. We know what some of the cons are. So what happens if we break a string, okay, in the field? Well, as long as your bow didn't get damaged and you brought an extra string, you can restring this thing that fast and you're ready to go, okay? That's a big advantage to you with shooting traditional bows over anything else for options out there, which are all compound systems, okay? You break one of those strings, A, you can damage your bow quite bad, and B, you're not going to restring that in the field. It's never going to happen. But at least with these, you can, all right? Providing no damage got done when the string snapped. But this is why you're supposed to keep an eye on your string. Now, I do want to give you a little bit of extra information here, too. If you ever hope in heck to be an accurate shooter with a trad bow, you have what's called a brace height on all bows. And you have a minimum brace height and a maximum brace height. Whatever brace height you set your bow up for, which is part of why we twist our strings to add a little bit more preload to raise or lower our brace height, you have to pick a brace height you're comfortable at shooting at within the minimum and maximum allowable by the manufacturer for said bow. And you have to keep it there. And every time you are done shooting any of these types of bows, they must be unstrung, because otherwise you will incur limb damage, even with laminated limbs. I have talked to many people that are experts on this stuff, and they tell me that, yeah, maybe you could get away with a week, maybe 2 weeks, and you might be lucky, depending upon the limb core of its wood, whether or not it's going to get damaged, because there's different cores that are used. My core in my aspen bow, it's hard rock maple, and it's going to be really hard to damage it. So yeah, I could actually leave that thing strung 2 weeks easily and probably not incur any kind of weakness in the limbs at all, okay? Whereas the core in this, I'm not sure exactly what it is. I think this is walnut, and well, it's got 2 different woods in it. It's got a small piece of walnut in there. I think the other part might be maple. I don't know. I'd have to look up the specs. But either way, I don't leave any of these things strung for any amount of time other than when I'm shooting them. When I'm done shooting them, I destring them, and then I just put the string on backwards like this so it stays on the bow, so I also don't mix up strings, and then I hang the bow up. Okay, I don't need to use this as a takedown setup right now because I'm not hunting with it. I'm just hanging it up on a hook on the wall, keeps it there, and it's wall art when I'm not using it. So, and fast and easy to grab when it's already assembled too. But you do have to keep that brace height consistent. So you're always going to have to check your brace height when you string up your bow to make sure it's the same. right? Because if your brace height has lowered or your brace height increased, then your accuracy has gone down the toilet, okay? So that is something that the experts tell you as well. You've got to make sure that, you know, the appropriate twists are there to give you the exact brace height you're comfy with, and you got to keep that brace height, because once you start changing it or you don't pay attention and it does drop, or maybe you gave a few twists unconsciously when you were stringing it and it made the brace height higher, your accuracy is going to go to crap, okay? That is part of the deal with these bows, okay? But you cannot leave them strung up on the long term or you will weaken the limbs, okay? That's a big thing. Even laminated limbs will weaken. And some people say no, but I don't pay attention to those people because they don't know as much as even the old timers that have been shooting laminated limbs for decades, okay? Those guys I trust, and I trust the top experts too. And I trust Olympic shooters because they know gear probably better than anybody when it comes to shooting trad, especially if they're a trad shooter Olympian, okay? There are those that shoot compound too, from what I hear, so, you know, but yeah. So I look at a lot of videos, I watch a lot of videos, I take some stuff with a grain of salt, other stuff I take as, yep, that matches up to 62 other people or 153 other people. Then I'm going to say, okay, that's definitely some pretty sound advice, that's pretty sound information, and yeah, I'll put that into my little cradle of brain cells here, into one of my boxes called bow box. I'm a male, we have boxes. One's called the nothing, and that's where we just go in front of a TV or something, so we don't hear anything. But I wanted to touch base with you guys on this stuff. I'm learning more, and as I learn more, I'm going to share that information too. And I do put into practice the stuff that I learn because I also want to see how accurate that information is myself. And yeah, so far, awesome stuff, okay? I am going to do a separate video about pros and cons to the compounds as well, because I think that's very important, because we need to know the difference, and I can't do both in one video because that's just way too much information back and forth. This is a little bit easier to track. So we've got some pros, we've got some cons. Our biggest con, period, like the biggest con, is going to be the learning curve, okay? It does take longer to get really super good with a trad bow, especially when you're not using a pin sight, okay? Which traditional archers don't use pin sights, all right? They do gap or they do instinctive, that's it, okay? But it is a much longer learning curve, I will say that, over compound. It is way longer, but it is way more rewarding in many cases to go with these, okay? And these also are very lightweight compared to a compound as well. So you have the benefit of, they don't weigh very much. Like, to hold this in my hand, I can hold this in my arm, like, probably for hours and not even move, okay? Until my arm's fatigued enough. There's just no real weight there. But where the drawback, one last drawback, and then I think we're good, whatever weight, draw weight your bow is, you are pulling all of that weight all at once, okay? You are building up from basically almost nothing, okay, whatever the weight happens to be at your brace height, but you're pulling from that point and you're building that weight pulling. You got to hold it back, okay? And then you got to release. Now, you shoot usually with a 3-finger glove, a thumb release, if that's what you want to go with, or you shoot split finger or 3-finger under. Now, split finger, 3-finger under, you can do that with a glove. The finger little tabs, they're usually split finger. They do have a 3-finger under one as well that you can get, but you have to be able to set your bow up to deal with 3-finger under versus split, because some bows apparently are really picky. Like this one here is set up for split finger only. It's the only way it works because of the rest on here. I've tried 3 fingers under. No way. It doesn't want to fire correctly. My other one, my center point Aspen, it's set up to shoot solely off the shelf with the pad, and where the knocking point is on that, which is going to be differently. That bow, I've tried 3 fingers with it, like split, doesn't work. 3-finger under, beautiful. okay? Different bows, different characteristics. Some bows could shoot either way, okay? But you got to have that knocking point proper no matter what, whether you're off of a rest or off of the shelf, okay? Either way, you got to have your knocking point correct, because your arrow has to sit completely horizontal when it's knocked properly, okay? Not just into the string, but to that knocking point. For the balance, it has to be coming perfectly straight. So when you pull back, that arrow has to be able to stay completely horizontal. And if it changes its direction, probably something you're doing wrong there. Anyway, that's all I got for you guys on this one. I probably still missed a couple of things on pros and cons, but I can't remember everything. But still, 21 minutes is a lot of info for you. Stay tuned. We're going to talk about compounds at some point today as well. Right now I'm probably going to go out and do a bit of shooting for a bit, and then I'll come back in and maybe do that video. So maybe at some point today it'll be on there, maybe tomorrow. We'll see what I end up doing. So thanks for watching. See you in the next one.